So I'll call the meeting to order. Then you take a roll call, please.
Steve Rigger.
Here.
Patricia Redmond.
Here.
Mary Ann Burke.
Here.
Kimberly Hayes.
Here.
Barbara A. Jones.
Present.
And then myself, Amy Silberg. You have a quorum.
Okay.
Oh, and also in attendance.
Do you want to introduce yourself?
Dean Gates, City Council.
Was it your name again?
Dean Gates.
Oh, Dean. How are you? It's nice to meet you.
Okay, first order of business after a roll call is approving the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Move to approve the agenda as presented. Second.
Okay, is there any objection? Hearing no objection, we'll call it approved. The next under the agenda is the minutes of the previous meeting. It's in your packet. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Move to approve the minutes for November 2015.
Second.
Any discussion? If not, we probably should roll call this one.
Okay.
Roll call.
All right. Steve Rigger.
Yes.
Patricia Redmond.
Yes.
Mary Ann Burke.
Yes.
Kimberly Hayes.
Yes.
Yes.
Is there any old business? Okay. A new business. Item A on the agenda is reorganization of the Salaries Emoluments Commission, election of chair and vice chair, annual disclosure, and oaths of office.
Mr. Chair, the municipal code says that annually the boards and commissions are, when they meet, are to reorganize, and that is what has come up on your agenda for today. So typically what happens, if you'd like to turn the meeting over to the staffer, then I will open the floor for nominations or volunteers, as it may be. And then after the election of a chair, I would turn the meeting back over to the chair, and the chair can proceed with the election of a vice chair.
I'd be happy to turn the meeting over.
All right, thank you very much. So the floor is now open for nominations for chair of the Salaries and Emoluments Commission. Are there any nominations or volunteers?
I nominate Steve Rigger. I second the motion.
Okay, are there any other nominations? Nominations are closed. All those in favor of Steve Rigger, please sign by saying aye.
Aye.
The vote is unanimous. Did you vote, Mr. Rieger?
I did.
All right, then the
I'll
vote
vote
is
aye.
unanimous. All right. Congratulations, Mr. Chair. I'm happy to turn the gavel back over to you.
And we also have a vice chair.
That is correct. I believe Patricia Redmond is your vice chair.
But I would like to nominate Kimberly Hayes. I second the motion.
Is there any further nominations? Any discussion? I'll call a vote. All in favor of Kim? Say aye. Any opposed? Okay. Congratulations.
It's a big job.
Okay. Annual disclosure. I'll turn it over to Barb. Just explain this.
Right, thank you very much. The code has been changed for our annual disclosures, and your disclosures now are, once you do your disclosure, you probably don't have to do a disclosure again under the new ethics code unless you have a change. So hopefully we won't have to do this again after you turn your disclosure in, which is good news. So that's it, and I think we've got, everyone's Pat is working on hers still.
You know, I see Pat working on the backside. I didn't do anything on the backside.
But I have
She has an economic.
Oh, okay. Got it. Okay.
Sort of.
Yeah, if you said
Me-
neither, you don't have to.
You don't have to,
Yeah,
okay.
we're good.
So we can just assume that guy's gonna get in by the end of the meeting and move on
Yes.
to oaths of office.
All right, so if you are ready, we have some oaths of office. There's Ms. Burke, there's Kim, there's Pat, and Steve. And if you would all like to, that's okay, stand and raise your right hand, please, and you will be officially sworn in. So it's a repeat after me. So I'm going to say your name, don't say your name. And then I will say swear or affirm, and you may swear, you may affirm, or you may say swear or affirm. Okay? So this is one of my favorite parts of my job. So I say your name.
I, Kimberly Hayes,
Solemnly swear or affirm
solemnly swear
that I will uphold the Constitution of the United States,
that I will uphold the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Alaska,
the Constitution of the State of Alaska,
and the Charter of the Municipality of Anchorage,
and the Charter of the Municipality of Anchorage,
and that I will faithfully perform
and that I will faithfully perform
the duties of member of the Salaries and Emoluments Commission
the duties of a member of the Salaries and Emoluments Commission
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
Congratulations. You may sign, and we will get those signed and sealed, and you will all be official.
No, that's okay.
Okay, we're down to new business, item D, review salaries of mayor, assembly members, and school board members. Any staff presentation on this, or just plenty on?
Actually, I think Amy put this material together. Is that right, Amy?
Well, yeah, so it's all the information or the resolutions that you guys had passed in the past. And the last one is from 2015. And that is in the very back under resolutions. And so this is the opportunity if you guys want to discuss it further.
And this information right here is not, is this new information, Amy, or?
That's just yours.
Oh, okay, got it.
You must have saved these binders. I can see my old handwriting on the back.
We do save your binders.
Look at that.
Well, that way if you put some notes in them, you don't have to take them home. We'll keep your notes and everything.
Okay, I will just open the floor to any discussion by members. Anyone have maybe I'll say, let's talk about the salary of the mayor first, and then go on to assembly members and school board members.
Well, I've given it, I have thought about it, and what we do today doesn't affect the current mayor, but I'm still not comfortable doing any increases. I mean, I know it's not like the mayor is a public servant too.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just feel like, and it wouldn't, we don't know what's gonna happen, so it's hard to, I guess I was thinking I've been thinking that I didn't want to do any increases, because I don't know if that's a good thing or not.
You look like you're ready to say something,
Well, I always try to think in terms of what impact does that have on other people? If one person gets a raise, no one else does, or some combination. And as I understand it, that's not the case. That other people are getting raises at this particular time. Is that correct?
Could I refer that to staff? What has been the history of what's happened with, at least with municipal employees since our last meeting?
I think I would have to, request a presentation from employee relations, particularly because there's so many different things that could happen. There's one thing that would happen to executive employees like Dean and I, and then something that's slightly different for executive employees like Amy. Where Dean and I serve at the pleasure of an elected official, and so department directors are going to be a little bit different than line employees, and then there's also all of the collective bargaining agreements. So all of those raises have been probably established 5 years ago. So we can get a report to you about that.
No, I wouldn't
Okay.
feel, personally, I would not feel that was necessary, but I do think the executive, the appointed individuals as well as department heads.
Okay?
Because we do have negotiated salaries, and I don't think it's necessary for us to get into that much detail.
Okay, so we can get back to you, we can set up another meeting in a month or so and get back to you with a report on executive department director, that level salaries.
Yeah, and since I've been looking, 3 years down the line before the mayor will get a raise, or is it the next?
That would be the next mayor,
The
right?
next time, yeah, as I understand it. So, yeah, and at that point, I mean, if we're looking at that, then that's something we really.
Well, then I'm misunderstanding here. My understanding was that anyone who is currently serving is not impacted by the decisions we make on increase salaries at this time.
Right.
Right, that's what
Yeah,
Pat's saying.
yeah.
So whether we do or not, there's no immediate effect.
Right.
But after the next election,
Next mayor, well, for the
For the
mayor,
mayor.
the next mayoral election.
and how often do the executive layer, is that any time?
Mhm.
And they'd be on the same, they don't benefit from anything we do now.
That is, well, the only people that are going to benefit from what you do would be elected officials, or there are some boards, I believe, some time ago, the commission set the ML&P board, their salaries. So outside of those few boards and elected officials, you don't affect anyone's salary. So we could get back to you within, if you wanted to meet in another month, and let you know about those department directors' salaries.
But we don't have to wait until
No.
after an election.
No, we don't. No, what I'm thinking is that whatever we do won't go into effect for the mayor for 3 years. So we should, so that's something we probably want to look at too, though, as to where do we think we should be in 3 years.
But can't we have a meeting next year?
Well,
Or do you
sometimes
have
we
to?
wait, yeah, we could, but.
You could meet now and make a decision for 3 years, in 3 years, that you can do that and have
That's
done that.
crystal balling. We don't know. We may have a windfall, who knows? We suddenly may be the richest municipality around, hardly possible. But unless I'm misunderstanding, if we met once a year and say the economic outlook at this time is good, bad, or different in the next 2 years, and then in the next year. Getting reality, current reality, closer to the reality that will be in place after the election. Does that make sense? Doesn't look like it.
It does for the mayor, but we do affect the assembly and this, we do the school board? Yeah, the school board. And those elections are every year. So it's written differently. So, Kim, you?
I had for historical purposes, when was the last time the mayor's salary was increased?
It's been quite a while.
In 2015, I was just looking at the minutes and I thought a motion to raise it didn't pass, but I guess I was looking at the wrong section.
No, you did. You looked at the correct section, but
2008, let's see, 2011.
Well, the one in 2008 is the one that corresponds.
We passed them in 2008. It was to go into effect in 2011.
Okay.
The 2015-2 did provide an increase to the mayor.
which one?
Oh, so that was in
2015-2, you did provide an
Okay,
increase.
so we did, okay, there.
Okay. And then when we met again in November, it was brought up, but did not happen. That's where I was getting confused. Okay. Okay.
And then one of the,
Go ahead.
no, I was just reading this one too. One of the things we did do at that time was eliminate the accumulated annual leave. Remember that?
So I guess there's a threshold question with respect to the mayor that's different from the assembly and school guard that's been brought up. There will be an opportunity to meet again. This is the
The
point.
mayor.
Before anything we do with regard to the mayor is going to happen anyway. So do we want to be closer? That's what Marianne's saying. So what's the will of the committee? Do we want to follow that course? Or do people think we should take it up now?
I feel comfortable waiting. Yeah.
I feel comfortable waiting too.
Okay.
Because
good.
it means we're not making any changes.
Right. Well, that seems to be the sense of the committee with respect to the mayor, and I don't think we need a motion. There won't be a motion put out on that.
No action on the matter this time.
So, unless there's objection, let's move on to consideration of salary for assembly members. And as my memory's been refreshed, as I'm looking through the prior minutes, we would not take action on raising or not raising, or raising the salaries of assembly members today. What we would do is take action to calendar a meeting where you could, because it would be noticed.
Right.
So the only question is whether to bring it up.
And whether or not we need to have more information, have a meeting with more information. So when did we do that? 2009. So what we did in 2008 gave them increases through 2012. And as I understand them, that's what the rate they're at now. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And the same was for the school board.
Okay, can you, rather than my digging up, can you refresh my memory on exactly what we did on in 2008 that went through 2012?
Yeah, it's next, it's this green tab. Here, that one.
Very bottom, okay. Oh, there we go, okay.
Yeah, we actually where there was a raise in 2011, 12, and 12. A 4% increase on the charity assembly and on the members of the assembly and of the school board. And that was, actually it says 2010, 11, and 12. And that was to bring them up to a more reasonable amount for that time. And they're not full-time, they're not considered full-time employees, but they do get, and they have the option to get medical and
Receive a medical allowance.
yeah.
Okay.
So, again, do we need to look at what, I don't know if we need to compare ourselves with other cities around the country as to what we get. I have here we are, we're volunteers. I keep telling people this city runs on volunteers and explain to them that, basically the number of city employees is only this. The rest of us is all volunteer commission members and boards that work for them and give the city guidance. So, I don't know. That's something I mean, do we want to consider?
Other communities have something to add?
Just to clarify, the last time the assembly compensation was raised was 2012, so they're currently receiving that compensation. But the mayor's compensation was raised in 2015, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Because of the election thing.
Yeah, no, just making sure I understood that.
As to the point of do we need to compare ourselves, we did look at part of the data in 15, and my recollection of the impact it had on my thinking was it's so vastly different. It's hard to come up with a common denominator.
Yeah, that's exactly.
Well, I know that in 2015, I felt like there should be an increase, but the committee as a whole voted not to. So to be consistent, I probably still have that view. I really want to hear if people want to calendar a meeting to consider an increase or not, and if so, we probably need to specify an amount, right?
No, I don't think
No.
you need to specify an amount. You can gather more information and schedule another meeting, and then when you decide on the amount, then you would schedule a public hearing after that.
Oh, so it would be 3 steps. Okay.
I think you could do 3 steps. You
Yeah,
could
we
do
do.
less, but I don't think you have to. I don't think you
We-
have to
we do
specify an
have to have a
amount.
public hearing.
You do have to have a public hearing.
So it could be noticed to just consider and act on an increase without the size of the increase being decided in advance. Is what you're saying? It all could be done in one meeting after this meeting.
I am not so sure about that.
Okay.
I think you do have to have a public hearing on the salary, and you'd probably want a draft resolution to be discussed. I think that today we were just thinking that the topic was, are we going to open this up for discussion? And if so, then we'd hold another meeting and work on the details for that, and then set a public hearing.
Okay, that sounds fine. So let's maybe limit our discussion to that, whether people want to have a public hearing on.
I think it's a good idea. Now, will we be open to public comment on the record at the meeting?
You are always open to public comment on the record. On your agenda, you'll see at the bottom, there's an opportunity for, at the end, for audience participation. So that's always on the agenda, but at the public hearing, it would be specifically on that item. People would be authorized to speak 3 minutes on just the proposal for any increase.
After we heard that testimony, can we then go into executive session and see if we agree or if we have a common consensus there? If we do,
You probably could not go into executive session. I think that, and Dean can advise us as well, executive session is limited to 4 topics. It's labor negotiations, personnel matters, finances, which might affect you probably know it by heart.
Health and s-
I was going to say finances.
Yeah.
Things that might affect the financial circumstances.
And there may be one other, but this would not apply to that. Your debate would probably need to be in open session.
And then we could make this vote on that. And that the public hearing might result in an amendment to the draft resolution or to the resolution that we have. Or it may result in nothing at all, no change at all. This also should be done.
Yeah, I just want to correct, I think the process is, as I believe would be correct, would be to have the public hearing before there's any draft resolution, right? And then draft it based on the information we have? Or
No, we need
Other
a
way around, I
resolution.
think.
So you have
you
to
do a
make-
draft resolution and then have the public hearing?
Yeah, you have, we have to have a resolution first. The other, Steve, I'm thinking, Mr. Chairman.
It's okay.
Thinking about the timing, because depending on when this budget is, if we actually authorize an increase, it would go into effect, I can't remember the wording, but it has to do with the next election, but it also has to do with the budget. And so it would have to be in, if we were to do an increase effective after the April election 2019, it would need to be done during the budget cycle that ends in November of this year, right?
May I add something more? I was just reading the charter for this commission, and you have a decision 30 days before the end of the fiscal year. That's the budget
Right,
cycle. It's
yeah.
before December 1st.
Yeah, okay, so same, so I was remembering correctly, so it would mean over the, not dragging our feet on it like we've not even had a meeting for a while.
Mr. Chair, Amy just provided this to me, and so it appears that you did have a draft resolution. This one concerns the calculation of compensation, but it's something that the Assembly does as well. The Assembly puts the proposed document out to the public, and then the public has the opportunity to be heard on the proposal. And that typically is the way that we do things, is we'll have a proposal first and have debate on that.
Okay, so if we are going to have a public hearing and we're going to have a draft document, that draft document will have a increase in it specified.
Or
even
it
though
could
it's
have,
draft. Yeah.
or it could have a blank.
Could have a blank. Okay, could have a blank. Okay. And that would comply with the notice and all to have a blank?
Yes.
Okay,
I think that's good.
okay.
I think it would, throughout these steps closing, that you're going to discuss the subject matter of what you're going to discuss and the decision you're going to make. So it doesn't have to be specific numbers that you're talking about increasing the compensation. That would be the subject matter that would be sufficient.
Okay, if that's sufficient, then, okay. what's the, well, what's the will of the committee? Do we want to have a public hearing on assembly member?
Do we want to consider, I guess?
Or have a public, just to consider it?
I think
Yes.
consider, because it has been 3 years.
Okay. And then do we want to have the fill in the blank, or do you want to put a proposed
You can
number
say
up?
none, is it appropriate? Decided not to do it?
Through the chair, at your last meeting, what happened is you just took no action.
Right.
So you don't have to put in none, you just take no action.
Right, although at some point we did, there was a motion that failed. Okay, so we took no action because the motion failed. Okay. Is there anyone opposed to calendaring a public notice on a draft resolution? Okay. Do you think you need a motion to do that? Should we move and actually move in second and vote on calendaring a draft resolution?
You don't need a motion to set a meeting now, so you can just choose. You've made a decision to debate this, and if you want a resolution, you can give direction to staff or even to our attorney, and you can tell us what you would like us to draft. If you want it to look like 2008-2 as amended, or if you want it to look like 2015-2 as amended, we could draft that. The problem is we can't email back and forth because I believe that would be a violation of the Open Meetings Act.
So we'll give you direction today and then that'll be it. Okay.
But then we need to, how would we get a copy of it before? Oh,
Typi-
then, once it's drafted.
Right, then on the week before the meeting, when we publish the agenda, then the document would be provided to the members.
And do we want to have more information about what the effect of an increase would be, or what would be, the effect, like how much a 1% or a 2%, or guess I could figure that out for myself.
Can I, before we get too far down the road, can I have you clarify when you said we should if we were going to go down this road, whether to specify a resolution as was in 2008, or what was in 2008?
2008-2 amendment.
Right. Can you
Sure.
shed some light on
So-
why one would be better than the other?
So, Mr. Chair, you could do a couple of things. This one I think is very interesting, and I think you and Pat might know more about that. But I can anticipate that it was probably, as long as you were doing the work to give a raise, you made a decision in 2008 to give a raise in 10 and 11 and 12. And so if you want us to prepare a shell document for you, we could prepare that for a raise for 2019, 2020, and 21. And when we bring it back to you, you could cross off any part or all of that. So we could do that for you, or we could actually do both. We could propose one similar to 2002. Through the chair, I think, Member Redmond had a really good idea that we could have some additional whereases in your new resolution that makes it a little bit clearer who this is effective for and when. I think that's one of the things that it's not always clear that, it's not effective for the current mayor. It's not effective, and we could make that clearer in the whereas section. We could also prepare a draft for you similar to the mayor's one that says, here's a raise for this amount as of this date. And we could do that as well.
Got it. So, is there a preference between those two approaches by any committee member?
I like 2008-2 as amended, just because doing the 3 years also indicates that there's cycles in election, different people are being elected. That makes sense. And the more information we have and we can cross out, you can't really, it just makes it easier, I think, to have more in there.
And,
Mr. Chair, I see your point, and it is a very good and valid point. I am just coming from a financial background. I hate projections. We're making a decision on what the financial position is going to be 3 years from now. I'm a little uncomfortable with doing that, but I certainly see how it works and works well. So with that very totally confusing comment.
Otherwise, you'd say you just want to go like one year ahead, or
Right.
I think
I'm sorry. We could always, I think, I really do feel more comfortable if we have meetings more often than we do. Once a year, we have these, just to show that we haven't forgotten it. And then that way we'll have more accurate information to make a decision. So if we make a decision to grant a raise for 2019, and we meet in 2019, and there is a significant change, we might want to change or do another motion to increase it for 2020 or no.
well, I agree about meeting more often, just even to say that we are aware that what's going on.
Mhm.
I think the reason we had the 3 years at this time was because it had been so long since there had been any change. And so I'm not comfortable either going like 3 years out, but this was to.
Wasn't there's a catch-up also?
Yeah, it was. It was to bring it to more.
And it wouldn't look good if it had all been done in 1 year.
Right. So we did it in bits and pieces. And the same thing, and there's nothing that says they have to get a raise, but the thing is would be to look at it. So I don't know.
That's why I like it
More
yearly.
which is.
well, the only thing I'd add is that it does sound like if you circulate a draft resolution that has more than what you intend to actually act on, or as an individual member, what you intend to support, you still have the ability to cut it back a lot easier than if you add to a draft resolution, if I'm understanding. Like if we decided to circulate a draft resolution that only had a single increase, but then later wanted to make it something that extended out several years, we couldn't because it hadn't been noticed. But the reverse is possible. And I'm going from what you explained. I'm hoping I'm paraphrasing that correctly.
I think that is pretty much what Dean said as well.
Yeah.
So if you're considering, if that's part of the subject matter of the next noticed meeting in the resolution, you are correct.
So I don't have a strong opinion on it, but I do think that if we want to keep our options open, we can always circulate more than we think we may end up taking action on. And one other thing I'd add is that I did like the suggestion that there be some whereases that make it clear, especially with respect to how it doesn't affect an incumbent. I think that's great. And putting a whereas or two in that is probably avoids a lot of misconceptions. So those are my ideas. So we are at, I also should, just to keep us on track, we were only discussing with respect to assembly members. So I think at this point we have a choice to whether to continue to try to figure out what we want to do with respect to assembly members, or does it make more sense to fold in what we might do on school board members at this time?
Mr. Chairman, I think we should, if we're going to do this, we should also be looking at the school board at the same time, since it's already incorporated in here, and that makes it, just keeps it in one place. Whether we take any action on it or not is something that goes to.
Mr. Chair, based on what you said, then am I correct in assuming there are three options that we will be noticing that we are going to consider based on all the information we have? And that is take no action for any future time, or take an action for 1 year, or take an action that will take care of 3 years out. Is that what you meant?
Yes, and the first one, we wouldn't even have to notice. But the second two, yes, we would have to notice.
But
Yes.
I just feel for transparency that it's always good to notice that there is an option of nothing. This is
Right.
no guarantee of something forward.
Right. Well, what's the sense of the committee? So which of those three, I think you've spoken to, you probably prefer the
No,
okay.
I do feel that we should consider all the options, though, and one of the options is
Right.
no action.
Okay.
But we could still at least notice, have a draft resolution, meet about it, and then
Exactly.
have a further meeting.
Right. If
Right.
I
And not
understand
take
your
no
point
action.
saying is that even if we do that, we're
It's no
reserving
guarantee.
our right to take no action. That's what you're telling us.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. What, since you were talking, what is your preference?
I prefer to notice a
Notice?
public hearing to discuss an increase.
And between the two drafts to circulate?
I liked the 2008-2 as amended with the whereases, so giving us the most options to work with and talk about and hear what the public has to say.
I agree with Kim.
Okay. That sounds like that's the sense of the committee.
Okay.
Take 2008 as your template, but add some whereases to avoid public confusion. And the dollar and percentages will be left blank. Is that
Okay.
correct? Great.
And to clarify, this current draft includes the school board.
Yes,
Yes.
this
So
will be
we-
both assembly and
yeah.
school board.
Mr. Chair, I would offer to do a table for you that would list the current salaries for the assembly and school board members, and then have percentages. This one has 4%, but we could have 1, 2, 3 percent,
Oh,
and then
just
you
do the
could.
math for us?
We
Okay.
could do the math
Thank
for
you,
you.
thank you,
Okay.
because I don't really like
Okay.
doing that.
Okay,
Mr.
that'd be great.
Mr. Chairman, I was wondering about the MLMP. Given that we don't know yet.
The sale.
Right. When would we need to consider this resolution on the MLMP?
Would there be a board anymore?
Yeah,
Be dissolved?
that's what I'm wondering.
Yeah, I think it's going on. I think-
Well, it's not gone now.
No, but
No, but I mean, even
It's,
the Salaries and Emoluments Commission's involvement in setting that may be gone.
no, I don't think so. Well, what was it, we said, we did
Okay,
MLM, is that gone away? Did we do away with this?
Through the chair, my understanding is that the MLMP board still exists and that they are still compensated $400 per month depending on attendance. Since there is a pending sale of MLMP to Chugach Electric, when the sale is completed, there would no longer be a board that would be compensated.
They would be merged into to the Chugach, well, whatever
Whatever
they decide to
Chugach
do.
decide.
Yeah. Okay, I understand that. I worked that side. I just wanted to be sure if there was anything we needed to do prior. It wouldn't be anything prior. It would just be. And is water and wastewater still receiving the same compensation as they previously?
Did you know, I do not know about the Anchorage Water and Wastewater Board. I could find that out for you before your next meeting.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know why I had it in my memory that we no longer had to worry about those, but I.
You're forward
You know,
thinking, yeah.
but,
It's
you
like,
know,
no, we don't even have
you
them.
know.
There was something, and that's why I'm trying to remember what it was.
Through the chair, I think you might be right. At one time, the utilities were separate from the municipality, and then they were brought in. But I still contacted someone last year about the ML&P board and was told that they were compensated, still compensated that amount. But I didn't check about the AWWU board, so I will check about that.
I should have been on it now. I mean, when we're getting compensated instead of when they weren't being compensated.
Timing is everything.
Yeah, well, you know, as I said, this is a volunteer government.
That's great.
Okay, so maybe I'll ask staff, do you feel your direction is clear on what to do regarding salaries of mayor, assembly members, and board members?
Yes, Mr.
Right,
Chair.
okay, so we're then, unless committee objects, we're done with 6 and going on to 7. I don't know, are there any reports?
No, Mr. Chair. I think the only thing we need to do before you adjourn is set your next meeting.
Okay.
Which would be a good idea. And this one wouldn't be the public hearing meeting. Would it be a meeting before we have the public hearing, or would it be the public hearing meeting?
Be a public hearing meeting, I think. But refresh my memory, what is the time constraint that we're under for getting all the way through it?
The time constraint that Dean read from the charter is that you need to propose a change 30 days before the end of the fiscal year, because it affects department budgets, and that obviously that would be November 30th or so, but I think I'd encourage you to do it before then.
It would
Okay.
be, Mr. Chairman, I think it would be nice, make it easier on the municipality if we could do it before doing budget preparations. So September, October would be a better, if we could do it then. Would that sound reasonable?
Mhm. Yes.
So it could be wrapped into the budget.
September?
That works for me. I mean, I could even do it over the summer, but if people
Right,
don't
well,
want
we
to.
can. We could do it any sooner,
Sooner.
but just so that we know that just so we know that it's done, so that it can be incorporated into the proposed budget that goes before the assembly in the end of October, first of November.
So through the chair, the preliminary budgets, budgets are starting to be built in July and August, and the mayor has to prepare a 120-day report, which is on September 1st. But the full budget is proposed on October 1st. Now, of course, there are some amendments, but
July would be a better time even to get our information done. So would that?
I think you'll be fine if you do something in, Alaskans don't work in July,
I know
but
it.
Yeah.
August or September would be fine. Either one of those months would be, would probably be ideal, let me say, if you had it done by then. If you wanted to do it in June, I think that would be fine too.
gonna be nice.
Well, everyone can think about their calendars. I know that I am out the 22nd through 28th of August. After that, I'm back. I don't know if other people know, or do you want to do a
September's
poll
pretty
later
open.
of when everyone's available? But if people know, we could try
Yeah,
to
let's
set
just
something down.
do it now.
Maybe right after Labor Day, like the 4th, 5th, or 6th, something in there.
I would really encourage us to do it as early as it fits everyone's schedule.
That's what I'm thinking too, earlier even would be.
Earlier the better.
So you think back in August, you think?
Early August.
Okay.
Early August.
That's fine with me.
July.
I'm available after the 6th of August.
After the 6th.
Mhm.
So, looks like we're looking at a window between the 6th and 22nd, at least for
Mhm.
two of us.
Mhm. That works.
That's just pretty clear for me.
I only
Nothing
have a
that's
cou- I only have a
written in
couple of
stone.
things. Oh, definitely not the 26th and 2nd's election day. I'm busy that day.
What about then, well, let's see, is
21st
Mary
is
Ann's looking.
election day.
I'll just
I think
suggest.
some of the Thursdays aren't that good, actually. I mean, if we could do it Wednesday, it sure work better for me.
Yeah, I was just going to suggest August 15th.
Sure.
Sounds good to me. So,
So let's, maybe we can, that's a legal email chain, right? We can just.
Absolutely.
Establishment of
Back and
dates.
forth on setting a date.
Yes.
So maybe we can circulate that, make sure it's all
Okay.
confirmed and everything checks.
Could you do that for us and make sure that the 15th works? And then would you like to do it from, we could set it at 5. Do you think we need to go to 7, Mr. Chair, or do you think 5 until, or we could say 5 until complete?
That sounds good.
Okay.
Yeah, I know that one time we went almost till 7. But,
Mhm.
and yet we never
I-
never know who's going to show up, but anybody.
yeah.
Okay?
Okay. Okay, so we've calendared a meeting. Are there any member comments?
I do agree with
Very
you,
good.
yeah, it's right in front of me, that we should meet more often, because we didn't meet last year at all, that I know of. Did we?
No, we didn't.
been 3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, some of us are going to be turned out again. We're going to have to be, reappointments. Is that this year? So,
10/14/2019.
oh, okay.
So next year, next October.
Okay, we're good.
Okay. Is it okay to rely on staff to take the initiative to round us up for a meeting next week?
Yes.
Okay.
I think the code and charter actually require you to meet, I believe it's once every 2 years. I think that's what the requirement is, but we could certainly make sure that we understand your request is annually. And it appears that this is really a good time to meet, like, to set your annual meeting in May, because it's after the election, and then you're getting ready to make a decision before the budget. So this
Right.
seems to be a good time, and we could make sure that that happens, Mr. Chair.
Okay, great, thank you. Is there any other comments from the public? Okay, unless I'm missing something, we're ready for a motion to adjourn.
I so move. Second.
Any objection?